Well, I always have to wait, because if I
I
don't
know.
wait, then it's going to get me. When I heard back on audio, it's like week's episode, and
Oh no.
it's like so I have to record like 2 o'clock in the morning, and so everybody here in my house hears, "Oh, this week's episode," and so it's like, okay, thanks,
Hmm.
Dad. Appreciate you waking me up with your lousy voice. No worries.
Your children do not talk to you like that.
You would be surprised. They're teenagers. I love them. They're brilliant. They're smart. They're beautiful. They're awesome in every way. But yes, they are independent like their mother. That's all.
Yeah,
And I'll leave it at that.
fair enough.
Fair enough indeed.
Yeah.
On this week's episode, it's Star Wars versus Star Trek once again. AMC just can't leave The Walking Dead behind. And does Tom Hanks really believe in dead eyes? All this and more as we reach our next stop, the PCC Multiverse. And we're back with another episode of the PCC Multiverse. This is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and also as well the Lakers Fast Break. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our shows, and if you can, please give us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. Plus, if you could like, share, subscribe, follow, or do everything that you can to support us right here at the Lakers Fast Break, Pop Culture Cosmos, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, Game Source, Vampires, and Vitae, popculturecosmos.com. Everywhere our social media for not only Pop Culture Cosmos, but Vampires and Vitae as well. If you can support all that great stuff, because we're the #1 tabletop RPG streamer on Facebook, and you can also check out the latest news and trends in pop culture every single day at Pop Culture Cosmos on Facebook. And if you could support all that, it is sincerely appreciated. But it wouldn't be a PCC Multiverse without my good friend. She is our own Star Trek superfan for Pop Culture Cosmos. You gotta check out what she's doing today at Pop Culture Cosmos on Facebook. She's also doing some great things for Vampires and Vitae, the awesome tabletop RPG show that you gotta go ahead and get into right now. Well, actually, no, after the show. But wherever you get your podcasts, it is my good friend. It is Mrs. Melinda Barkhouse Ross. And Melinda, we are back at it
Yes,
once
man.
again.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to ask you this before we go
Okay.
into the show and I give everybody the rundown of what we're doing because we're talking pop culture, because there's another great weekend in store for us here. I wanted to ask you this. We always talk about our podcast because we're so shy. We're so introverted when it comes to pitching our own podcast. And you only hear it like 15,000 times during the course of the episode. By the way, Vampires and Vitae, Pop Culture Cosmos, Lakers Fast Break. But I wanted to talk about some podcasts, one of yours and one of mine, that I'd like to talk about that we listen to on the side that is not solely owned by us or hosted by us or guested on by us or in any way, shape, or form relating to any of us here at the Pop Culture Cosmos or
Sure.
Vampires and Vitae. So,
Mhm.
is there a podcast on the side that you listen to when you're not checking out anything that's Pop Culture Cosmos or Vampire and Vitae related?
There's two. Do you mind?
Okay,
Is that okay? Is that okay? Okay.
that's
So the first,
allowed. You're the host of the show, so yes.
yeah, right. Okay. So there's one. It's called Rolly and the Geek. It's a group of people who played together for a really long time, and then a really I'm gonna say the word unfortunate. I mean, like absolutely heartbreaking and devastating event happened to their DM, and I have been doing everything that I can to continue to support their podcast because of this terrible tragedy. Because I want nothing more than for this table now that lost their DM to come back stronger than ever and to feel supported and all of that kind of stuff with the community. So look them up, Rolling in the Geek. Give them all of the reviews, pay tons and tons and tons of attention to them, talk to them. Yeah, they're just a wonderful group of people. They're really truly lovely, and we have a little bit of a connection between their podcast and Vampires and Vitae, which is completely behind the scenes. Like there's no crossing over or anything like that, but we've asked for advice and all of that kind of stuff from them, and they've just been wonderful the entire time. So show
Mhm.
them a little bit of love. If you are a Warhammer 40K kind of person, this is more of a YouTube thing than it is podcast. So I'm just going to pretend that it still counts.
Okay.
But what you need to do is look up Baldermort, Baldermort. He does a lot of lore videos and he has a ton of them right now. Robbie and I discovered him when he had, gosh, less than 500 followers. Now he's up in the hundreds of thousands of followers, and all of his videos are on a very regular basis getting multiple thousands of views and stuff like that. Another just wonderful gentleman. He's from England, and he just loves Warhammer, and he just loves being able to kind of introduce all of the different factions and all of that kind of stuff, and primarchs and everything, to an audience that is discovering Warhammer 40K for the very first time. So give Uncle Baldy some love, and tell him that Robbie and Melinda sent you.
There you go, indeed. Please check out those podcasts and please also check out the YouTube channel today. Great supporting both those causes. But the reason why I asked you this, Melinda, is because on the
Mhm.
back half of the show, I will share a podcast that I have been listening to that has garnered a lot of news in the past couple weeks because of the fact that on an episode that dropped as we're speaking today,
Mhm.
that dropped a major star on that podcast that is the whole central theme of the podcast. The
Oh,
podcast is called Dead Eyes. It's about the actor Connor Ratliff, who hasn't done a ton of stuff as far as that's been major out there and noteworthy. You probably say he's just a character actor and comedian as far as the level of success that he's had. But he's
sure.
done a lot of things as far as on stage, improv, that type of thing. Back in the early 2000s, when the Band of Brothers was doing its shooting, the HBO series that garnered a lot of acclaim, it had a
Yep.
lot of stars that came out of it, things of that nature, was actually executive produced by Tom Hanks and Steven Spielberg. The episode that he was going to be in, that he thought he won a role for, that he thought he wasn't going to go, actually, he was in the UK, actually going to go and be part of an episode. As he was going to film this episode, he was asked to audition again by an arriving director by the name of Tom Hanks, who had just come from Castaway.
Oh
So the
gosh.
story goes, they checked out his audition tape one more time, and I guess assistants or whoever he was passed down to, you have to check out the whole entire series to see how this lays out. He was let go, and it was told to him that Tom Hanks had said, "You have dead eyes." So it's basically the premise is it's been holding him as far as as far as his whole psyche, a lot of things that have it's affected him in a certain way. This
Sure it
this
has.
actor Connor Ratliff over the past 20 some odd years. So he created this podcast a couple years ago that wanted to break down why exactly Tom Hanks actually said those words, or did he? So he's been tracing this series of podcasts similar to what we see in serialized podcasts like Serial and some other noteworthy, true crime podcast styles. So
Mhm.
he's been doing it, he's trying to be tracked down a little bit of bits here and there. Sometimes he goes off on a tangent, but I will go ahead on the back end of the show and talk about why you might want to check out his latest podcast, his latest episode of his podcast, Dead Eyes, and that's coming up on the back end of the show. Plus, also want to make mention that we're going to be talking about Turning Red, which hits Disney Plus, which hits Disney Plus this weekend. We're going to be talking about WWE 2K, which returns to consoles this weekend. We're going to talk about why that's a big deal. Plus, DC had some movie changes as far as movies going here, movies going there. So we'll be talking a little bit about that. Another Walking Dead series has been announced, so the Walking Dead series is far from over. We'll talk about if that's a good thing or a bad thing. And also the Adam Project with Ryan Reynolds. That debuts this weekend as well on Netflix, so we'll talk about that on the show as well. But first, Melinda, Star Trek, Star Trek, Star Trek. Star Trek, Star Trek, Star Trek, Star Trek.
Uh-huh.
I have a great admiration for Star Trek. I've told you I have seen quite a bit of Star Trek. I have almost seen as much as you have when it comes to Star Trek and admired it greatly. But when it comes to the Star Trek versus Star Wars argument and battle, as it always seems to go down to, I love both properties, but I've seen both sides of this argument. And the Star Wars folks seemingly always have the upper hand as far as box office numbers, as far as popularity, things of that nature, as far as its embedment in pop culture, whatever argument you want to make. Well, Star Trek, since its shows have started migrating towards Paramount Plus, starting with Star Trek Discovery, has made a really nice resurgence in
Hmm.
recent years.
Long
When,
overdue.
yeah, long overdue. Since the third movie of the reboot movie of the Star Trek movies, that kind of met mediocre reviews and kind of did mediocre at the box office. Didn't really get the kind of pizzazz I think that the that Paramount was hoping for. So they let the IP rest a little bit, couple years, and then, like I said, Star Trek Discovery came around. Then Star Trek Picard has come around. You got Star Trek, Strange New Worlds that's on the way. You've got the Star Trek show that's based on Nickelodeon. That's done a great job. You got Star Trek Lower Decks that's done a great job over the past couple seasons. But the thing is, when you're promoting your product, you got to do it on a day or a week when Disney does not drop a trailer on the same day. So on the same day, you had Strange New Worlds, the upcoming series that needs all the attention and all the eyes it can get. On the same day, it drops as the Obi-Wan Kenobi trailer for Disney Plus that's coming up in May, late May. And I just tell you what, I would fire the PR company for Star Trek, if that was the case, because they just blew it. Because you don't do that if you always want to play second fiddle. These are the type of things you do.
Right. Well, if you always want to play second fiddle, then you give your fans the kind of inkling that tells you that you don't really like your fans as well. I mean, Star Trek has done a really good job of doing things like that.
I mean, the Star Trek Discovery is outstanding. I've been catching
So
up, like I
good.
told you before we
Yes.
went on the air, and I've told you the production values for this show, especially the special effects, are some of the best that you can find anywhere on television.
Yes.
Absolutely anywhere.
And
And
some
the
of the best lens
stories,
flare, let's be honest.
yeah, some of the best lens flare, etc., but it
Uh-huh.
is really, really good. Picard up and down his first season, but the season two seems to be going off on the right note. Star Trek Lower Decks, very funny. Obviously, it's going to come around to be a hit still for Paramount Plus. But these things that I'm seeing as far as eternally going awry for Star Trek in an era where Star Wars is very uncertain after the poor performances of the last three Star Wars movies. Well, I should say Star Wars Force Awakens, that actually kind of did well box office wise, but critically, as far as it's concerned,
Right.
they're all over the place when it concerns, especially with The Last Skywalker, which everybody kind of panned. I'm just thinking that the best opportunity where you only have the Mandalorian to go up against, and what you saw with the Book of Boba Fett, which was like, okay, people were like, whatnot. You know the
Right.
story on that one.
Mhm.
It just seems that you have these opportunities to go ahead and catapult yourself into a conversation more prevalent than you were before, but you keep making these mistakes that leave you a little bit behind, and that's just where coming from.
Sure. I can see your point. Um what would have been clever, and I don't know if this is what they did because I wasn't there. I wasn't around when the
Well, it's just
trailer
the
dropped. I
usual
didn't see
trailer
much of it,
drops,
you know
yeah.
what I mean? Yeah, it was just the thing, right? But what would have been clever would have been to buy ad space on the front of the Star Wars trailer to show the Star Trek series.
Well, maybe they did that with YouTube. It's depending on algorithms and what you're watching. So maybe actually people might have actually caught that on their YouTube channels when they were
Yeah.
watching the YouTube version. But again, it's still kind of disappointing to see that Star Trek makes these little mistakes that leave them behind, and that's why they're at a certain level. And Star Wars, whatever they can bring out a Baby Yoda and instantly back up into the prominence again.
Right.
They
Here's my beef
they
is
just keep Star Wars can seemingly do a lot more wrong than Star Trek. That's all I'm trying to say.
right. And I think that it's because of this very unusual history that Star Trek seems to have
Yeah.
between Star Trek and its fans, and
Yeah.
how quickly and severely they come after even cosplayers, for heaven's sake. Have felt some of the heat from the Paramount people. So maybe they should start there and rebuild your core community a little bit. But I also think that what has happened is we have been starved for new Star Trek for so long, starved for it. So it's almost like they're just like, here you go. And they're just oblivious to everything else. They're like, well, if this trailer's ready, here it is. Here's this. Here's this. That's going to keep them quiet for a while. It almost feels like that as a Star Trek fan. Maybe I'm taking this a little bit too personally now that I've said it out loud. But that is, to me, that's how it's coming across.
Well,
It's
again, let's
disappointing.
put. I'm going to go ahead into the trailers themselves.
Yeah.
Kenobi, which again is for the upcoming Disney Plus series,
Yeah.
it gave a somewhat of a generic look at what's coming up in the series. It looks good because it showcased a lot of the new villains that Kenobi will be facing off against. Take a look. You actually see for a sheer second, you see a young Luke Skywalker and him staying far away, not trying to interact with them, but that he's keeping an eye on him, whatnot. You'll see the constant search for Jedi's to go ahead and kill because the Empire is after all the Jedi after Order 66. It's very intriguing. You barely see Kenobi in the trailer or see him do much. You do see
Right.
Joel Edgerton playing Uncle Ben again in that role that he actually played in a couple occasions already. So it's great to see him come back into that role because he's a big name actor. That's not the biggest role in the world. So you kind of curious what part will he play a larger part in this new series. So that's something there to think about. But again, it didn't have too much of Ian McGregor as Kenobi in it, just a couple shots of him and whatnot. It was more about the adversaries he's facing off against. But you don't see Darth Vader as of yet, or Hayden Christensen or anything like that yet. So that's still yet to be revealed. With the Star Trek Strange New Worlds trailer, it seemed to be more of a complete trailer of what you're looking to expect from them as far as Anson Mount. He's isolated. He doesn't want anything to do with, but he's coaxed back into service, working on going on back on the ship and going back into exploring the strange new worlds. Just it really looked good. It really looked complete. What I'm trying to say is, in order to try and capture the audience, don't do it on the same day that Star Wars, a main rival of yours in the pop culture realm, or the consciousness, I should say, the pop culture consciousness, don't try to compete with them on the same day. My daughter, I told you earlier, she's a Disney fanatic and she likes to go ahead and check out everything that's going on. She caught wind, or she guessed correctly, that the Star Wars Kenobi trailer dropped. If my 16-year-old daughter can figure that out, why can't they at Paramount?
I honestly, I feel like, and it's frustrating as a Star Trek fan to
Did
have
you did you
these thoughts
you
and
saw both
these.
trailers and you liked both trailers, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And both for different reasons.
Yeah.
I think that um I think the problem is that I don't want to say I don't think that they're aware, because I don't know how accurate that is. How could you be in the world of PR and be unaware?
Yeah.
But um there's a failure somewhere. I'm not sure where it's at, but
It's a disconnect, seemingly.
yeah, please call me. I'll help you. I'll market Star Trek. Are you kidding me? What a dream job that would be. Call your girl. I'll help you
I mean,
out.
and wasn't like it dropped on the first Monday, like a lot of trailers. Big name
Right.
trailers drop. It's always on Mondays. This didn't drop until the middle of the week. They had
Right.
every opportunity to drop it beforehand, or a week after, or a week before, where they had their own space to go ahead and showcase to fans this is what is upcoming in the Star Trek universe that we really think is going to be special. And Star Trek, again, is really seeing a renaissance of really great proportions. And actually, there's going to be a Star Trek movie later on this year that they're going to
Yeah.
start filming that seemingly all the cast members weren't sure or didn't know about. Oh, really? There's a new movie
Surprise!
going to be starting? Yeah,
Yeah.
surprise! But
Yeah.
I just want to see Star Trek succeed on a level and a platform than it is right now,
Yeah.
and get to that level of success that I think it's always deserved, but never has truly gone.
Yeah, no, I agree, and again, it pains me as a Star Trek fan to see, that kind of stuff, and people looking at, this series that I love so much and has meant so much to me for so long. To see people have that kind of opinion about it, as it's
Is
disconnected.
it is it too highbrow? Because sometimes it gets accused of being highbrow sci-fi as opposed to Star Wars, which is more generally commercial sci-fi.
But I think that that's part of what they're trying to fix the correct word? I don't know. I felt like when I was watching Discovery that they were spending a little bit more time on the relationships of the crew of the Discovery. I know
Hmm.
there was like the monster of the week and all of that kind of stuff, but it felt like they took what was great about Deep Space Nine and what's been great about every other Star Trek series, and they put it together, and then we got Discovery.
Okay.
To me,
Well,
that's and I think that that's gonna be the formula that they use for their TV shows moving forward because of how successful Discovery is.
okay. Well, again, I'm just concerned as a pop culture follower. Obviously, we do this every week, and I hear the things over the course of the past few years,
Sure.
actually decades, since I've been alive, about what Star Trek and Star Wars, have meant to each other, have meant to their fans, and the fight that's always gone between diehards of each faction. And
Mhm.
as someone who loves both entities and has hated both entities at certain times, depending on the
Right.
product that is put out,
Mhm.
it's become a situation where I've seen always. To me, it's a situation where it's a David and Goliath, and you have this Goliath that's Star Wars that can seemingly at times, even when it puts out a junk product, can still seemingly have a lot of eyes on it. Whereas Star Trek can do everything that they can and put out this superior product on a lot of occasions and cannot get anywhere near the same eyes on it.
Well, I think too that there is a level, there's incredibly, and let me preface this with, I'm not trying to say that Star Wars fans are not demanding.
Yeah,
I'm not trying to say that. I'm not comparing apples to apples here. But
yeah,
I know the Star Trek audience is demanding, and the Star Trek and what Star Trek means and how it should look and how it should be approached does seem to be quite different, for different pockets of Star Trek. And I think that once we can put down our keyboards and we can go out of the house and we can talk to other people, and we can listen to other opinions and give things a little bit of extra thought and stuff like that, I think that we're going to start to cut Star Trek the same slack that we
hmm,
may afford to a Star Wars movie or series or whatever. I mean, Boba Fett, you call it yourself. It was snoozy. It wasn't.
the Book of Sloboda Fett.
Yeah, that's the one. Thank you. I couldn't remember what you were calling it. So, not everything with Star Wars works. Um, and not everything with Star Trek has worked either. I'm not trying to say that. I'm just trying to say that as fans, um, who, oh, okay, have been treated kind of badly, but as fans, we need to be able to cut the shows a little bit of slack. It's not, this isn't what Star Trek is. This is what Star Trek is supposed to be. All of those kinds of conversations, you need to allow these things to evolve and change and grow. And I think sometimes we get so stuck in, I loved the Next Generation, every series now has to be like the Next Generation.
Yeah,
I think we get
that's
stuck.
what you don't want. That definitely
No,
don't want.
no, not at all.
But again, it's just an issue I think that needs to be discussed all the time in order to make sure that these products, both on the Star Wars and the Star Trek side, try to do what they can to differentiate themselves from the rest of the pop culture community and try to make themselves continually attractive to a larger and younger audience, which I think is a key going forward. Because as the older Star Trek and Star Wars fans die off, you have to have new ones to replace it and grow. Otherwise, you're going to go ahead and set yourself up for failure. So again, these mistakes to me, they're seemingly minor. I mean, again, maybe some people are talking to me out there or asking me, saying to me out there that, what are you making a big deal about this? To me, it's a big deal for the future of these series of these IPs, especially in the case of Star Trek, which is always seemingly running an uphill battle. And if you are running an uphill battle, you have no time to go ahead and have a misstep. And
Right.
this week, with the debut of the trailer on the same day, the debut of the trailer Strange New Worlds on the same day that Kenobi was released, I think was a misstep indeed. But again, please, if you get a chance, we have both of the trailers. We have the links for both on our Pop Culture Cosmos Facebook page. So if you have a thought on exactly which one you like more, if you like both, if you're looking forward to both, if you check one out over the other, or if you want to weigh in on the Star Trek versus Star Wars eternal debate, please let us know. PopCultureCosmos@yahoo.com. She's laughing, but she knows that there's always a debate between
Oh
these
yeah,
two.
I am expecting all of the ats on social media. I'm sorry. This is just my point of view as somebody who grew up sitting next to my dad on the couch watching Star Trek and falling in love with the world that they created. I love it.
Yeah, they both have their high and low points, but
Of
again, right now
course.
both are seemingly doing pretty good.
Yeah.
I know that the ratings for the Book of Boba Fett, at least initially, was pretty good. The Mandalorian obviously has done buku numbers for them and Disney Plus, and then the Star Trek. To me, the production values of Star Trek on television is seemingly as good as anything. Even the Mandalorian itself, I would match up Star Trek Discovery with anything as far as anything else on television as far as production wise. So
What
you have
Star
it
Trek
for that.
ought to do is just license Axanar and release that movie that's already made. It's a fan film, and
Yeah.
they got legitimate actors from the series in it, like J.G. Hertzler, who played Martok, is in Axanar. We should be able to watch that movie, but they put the brakes on it, and they've got it all tangled up in legal battles. Just license it and release it. See what happens.
Exactly. So we want to hear your thoughts. PopCultureCosmos@yahoo.com. Star Wars or Star Trek or both? Let us
Mm.
know. Please, we'd love to hear your thoughts on this. But before we hit to the break, my friend, The Adam Project on Netflix is hitting this weekend with Ryan Reynolds and directed by Sean Levy, who they just worked together on Free Guy. So they worked together again on The Adam Project. Depending on who you talk to, the reviews are mixed. I know that with some of the reviews are actually pretty good. With some of them, they're not as good. I know that for right now, the Adam Project has got a 55 on Metacritic. But again, this is probably going to get a lot of ratings on Netflix simply because of the fact it's Ryan Reynolds once again on a Netflix platform, which
Yeah.
he has garnered a lot of numbers well, maybe that too, but a lot of numbers previously. Oh, there you go. Can't show that on television. I know that we just had a radio station reach out to us and say, "Oh yeah, I want to show your stuff on television." I'm like, "Oh yeah." I'll probably have to edit the video on that one, but the the numbers, the numbers
Yes, the numbers.
the numbers have
Let's
been
recover.
very good on
Mhm,
Netflix so far.
mhm.
For his previous 777, I think was the one, and also as well, obviously with Red Notice, which is the most popular movie all time on Netflix. What do you see for the Adam Project? I mean, this is something that again he is coming into this as a time traveler that's coming back to go ahead and try to right a wrong that will go ahead, and if he doesn't, it will probably it'll have a adverse effect on the future going forward if he doesn't. So your thoughts on seeing Ryan Reynolds, hopefully in a PG version right there, with some a little bit of Ryan Reynolds sisms aside, but seeing Ryan Reynolds in this platform on Netflix once again.
Yeah, there's a few reasons why I don't think that the guy can miss. Ryan Reynolds has played Ryan Reynolds for a very long time at this point on the screen,
You
and
say that, and Free Guy. I've told you my thoughts on Free
yeah,
Guy.
I know, but it was. It was Ryan Reynolds playing Ryan Reynolds.
It was a hit, so you're
Yeah,
right.
he has that, they talked about it, they used to talk about it a lot on, American Idol. I understand the show is still on TV. I don't know, I don't watch it anymore, but, they Simon Cowell always used to talk about the X factor. And
Mhm.
do you or do you not have the X factor? And Ryan Reynolds figured out exactly what that meant. The rest of us are going, "What?" And Ryan is just laughing. He's like, "Yeah, I got it. I got it figured out. I married Blake Lively. I'm from Vancouver, and I love Deadpool. And now the guy can't do any wrong."
Deadpool's awesome. Deadpool 2 was okay,
Mhm.
had its moments. The thing is, though, if you really want to check out Ryan Reynolds do his Ryan Reynolds thing before it became old to some people, his stuff in the early 2000s,
Oh god, yes. Van
Waiting was a
Wilder?
Van Wilder,
Mhm.
Waiting was a really good, really underappreciated movie with a whole bunch of stars in there. I
Yeah.
really like that one. I really like what happened when they started cooking the food for the ladies that were really mean and what they did to if you've seen the movie, you'll understand what I mean. But
Yep.
again, it's still Ryan Reynolds is still going to get a lot of impact out there. One thing I was surprised though, again, you're seeing Turning Red also being taken off the movie theaters and being put onto a streaming service. Should this movie in the Adam Project had gone onto the big screen instead?
I won't be able to tell you that until I see it,
Okay.
to be honest. I know that I know, like I know Ryan personally. I'm even calling him by his first name. Ryan Reynolds is taking a break from acting.
Yes.
So, I don't think that these last few movies that he's done, and kind of has in the can is in post production or whatever. Um, I don't think that he needs them to be a huge money grab at this point. I think he's like, you know what? I've done a couple of these projects. I love them. I believe in them, and it's fine if this just goes to
He's
Netflix.
got Deadpool 3 waiting for him whenever he wants to go ahead and start it. So
Yeah, exactly. So I don't think it's really going to harm him all that much. Maybe putting it for free on Netflix, well, okay, for free on Netflix is the correct move right now, because I know we're all just kind of starting to get comfortable with at least here where we are in Vegas with the mask and quarantines and all of the restrictions being lifted and all of that kind of stuff. I think that uh, not everybody is quite there yet. And I think that somebody was very smart and said, you know what, let's just put this one on Netflix. We'll see what it does. Perhaps it's a big stinker and they don't want it to go through the theater. That's
yeah,
possible,
that is
right? I mean,
possible.
he was also in that Blade movie where he
Yeah.
played Ryan Reynolds, but he was in that Blade movie.
When how many times you can almost count him on one hand when he has not played Ryan Reynolds. So we
Yeah,
always talk about the actors who can get into character and those who the movie is structured around them as a character. Like for instance, Ryan Reynolds, Jack Nicholson. I mean, when has Jack Nicholson not been Jack Nicholson on any
right.
one of his performances? So you could look at it from that sense, or you could go ahead and look at like someone like Jared Leto, who's willing to go ahead and like House of Gucci and put a whole bunch of prosthetics on, and whether good or bad, whatever you think of the role, at least go ahead and try to make an effort to dive into the role and be indistinguishable and be someone that you don't even know it's him behind all that prosthetics. So
Right.
yeah, it's a give and take. So Ryan Reynolds again is coming out with the Adam Project this weekend on Netflix. Are you going to catch it?
Yeah.
Are you going to go ahead and check it out? I mean, it sounds like it. I mean, I know it's going to be the number one movie now, at least for the next couple of weeks on Netflix, and has a chance to really do some big numbers. But what are your thoughts out there on the Adam Project with Ryan Reynolds? Please let us know. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Well, coming up next, we're going to be talking some video games, kind of, with the God of War series coming up on Amazon, plus Walking Dead again, WWE 2K again, DC movie changes. They're moved around again. Turning Red is coming back. Turning Red's also coming out, and we'll also be talking about Tom Hanks. And does he think that you might have some dead eyes? We'll talk about that on the back end of the show. This is the PCC Multiverse. And we're back with the show. It's the PCC Multiverse. It's Gerald Glassford, along with the awesome Melinda Barkhouse Ross. the individual who you've got to check out each and every week at Vampires and Vitae, also her husband Rob, and the whole entire cast each and every week. Go ahead and check it out today on the Pop Culture Cosmos or wherever you get your podcasts. Plus, we're also the number one tabletop RPG streamer on Facebook, so check out all of our great videos, plus the latest news and trends of pop culture every single day, right there at Pop Culture Cosmos on Facebook. But my friend, still so much more to talk about. God of War was announced as a series that's now in development at Amazon Prime, which has also talked about Mass Effect, although that's not been confirmed anywhere outside of Deadline, so I'm always kind of leery about that. But definitely God of War has been announced by a whole bunch of outlets, so that looks to be, that's looking to be like something that's going to be a definite right there for you. So I want to hear your thoughts. Are you ready to go see Kratos go ahead and roar, I'm mad at the gods once again on
Yes.
Amazon Prime?
Yes, I am ready for that. And what took them so long? Good lord.
Yeah, I mean, all these video game properties have been out there for such a long time, and I know that this is somewhat of a one note type of deal, but it is a very good note on that one note type of deal with Kratos being mad at the gods. I mean, you could build it to just one cataclysmic battle after another as he goes off against once the one god after another.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah. I'm gonna watch it. Are you kidding me? I haven't played a whole lot of time in that game, but everything that I know about it and
Well,
everything
it's
that I
not deep. I mean, you could you
know,
pretty
I
much
mean,
know, yeah.
yeah. I mean, come on. I'm here for it. I'm gonna go see it.
Okay.
Yes, please give me that.
Because his wife gets killed by, I think, by at the hand of the gods, and he takes his vengeance out upon the gods. And then in what God of War, the reimagined sequel, that one, he takes his son. It now becomes a part of his life, and
Yeah.
as far as him teaching him the ropes and whatnot, you can go in through that realm. But again, it's a lot of it's just about, as if you remember the old versions of God of War, it was just about him just roaring and just being ticked off while he goes ahead and battles against the gods. So
I mean,
I'm
which is
sure,
also super fun. Maddie would
yeah,
get along with him just fine.
yeah, absolutely, crashing through doors and whatnot. But you would still see,
Yeah.
that realm, that Greek god or Viking gods, or just that whole god mentality, that whole god environment is something that I think is very attractive to Amazon Prime, and I think that's why they really want to get into the series.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, they've done a lot of really great shows that have been based on
Yeah,
similar material.
yeah.
I mean story wise, not video game wise, but yeah, no, I to echo what I said earlier. What took them so long? What were they
Yeah.
waiting for? Maybe it's just for licensing and a decent script, maybe, but
Maybe, and also the fact that video game movies, TV shows in the past have had such a bad reputation. That's why so many entities out there tried to stay away from video game ideas and video game IPs. But now that you're seeing so many different outlets out there, streaming or movie or otherwise, needing content to
yeah,
go ahead and base off of, God forbid they wanted to come up with something original. So we'll come up with something familiar, and now it's popular. And there you go. That's where you're seeing the Halos, the God of Wars,
yeah,
maybe sometime down the road, Mass Effects, Gears of War, things of that nature.
yeah.
Popular IPs that will be go ahead and produce out there on screen. So looking forward to a God of War series, but are you looking forward to a God of War series on Amazon Prime? Please let us know. PopCultureCosmos at yahoo.com. One thing I want to mention as well is The Walking Dead, which is supposedly in like fragmented parts and fragmented pieces, finally going to end its run on AMC. But we already know that's going to branch off with two characters already that are that they're creating a series as a spinoff that will involve two of the main characters being branched off into it. Now we heard this week from AMC that there's going to be another spinoff with two characters very well known to the series, Maggie and Negan. It's so funny because these two characters, which are diametrically opposed to each other, because if you're a Walking Dead fan, you knew or you know that Negan killed Maggie's husband, Glenn,
Right.
some time ago in
Mhm.
a really gruesome fashion. But what's the other thing that if you're a DC fanatic and you know this, Jeffrey D. Morgan, who plays Negan, and Laurie Cohen, that plays Maggie, as a way, I think it was a way to troll the fans out there. They are in BVS, BVS, Batman versus Superman. They play a role as the rehashing or doing a flashback on the Thomas Wayne getting killed because the Waynes who were and Martha Wayne were Negan and Maggie, who were diametrically opposed to each other on The Walking Dead. So I think they were trolling the Walking Dead fans by doing
Yeah, I
that
would
little
say.
cameo that they did. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I looked at that the other day and I'm like, I remember Negan being in it. I forgot Maggie was his wife. That's right. That totally tripped me out when I saw that. But when it comes to it, I think the real thing is after the heights of popularity that The Walking Dead reached, and we used to talk about on the show. We had some great guests. We had experts that came on, just reaping praise on the show each and every week, giving us all these updates. I enjoyed it immensely. My conversations and that. But I wanted to go ahead and ask. It reached the height of popularity, I think, in its fifth or sixth season. Then really started to go downhill from there, starting with Negan killing off Glenn in such a gruesome fashion. People were turned off by the gruesome violence, and it went downhill from there.
Yep.
Now it's at a point where I think it's still popular on Sunday nights, but it's nowhere near. I think it's like 20% of what it once was way back when. And now they're spinning it off again instead of doing something original. They're using
Yeah.
characters that you've seen for already years now. Is this a good move by AMC, or do you think it will bring a new audience in, or do you think it's just fragmenting the already reduced audience of The Walking Dead that's still there?
I feel like it's fragmenting, but I watched like maybe the first two seasons, and then I'm not a fan of zombies. That's a problem when I'm trying to watch The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Um, so I stopped watching the show. The noises that the zombies make, just ugh, it's awful. Oh, so I
Blah,
yeah, no, it's
brains.
just not good. Don't like it. Don't like it. No, no, no. So I stopped watching it, but knowing that the show is still going, I mean, good for them for being able to stay relevant to at least 20% of their audience. I mean, that's nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah,
And
that's still, but I mean, but now you've got two spin-offs that are coming featuring the
yes,
same characters that you've seen. So you got Daryl and Carol in one spin-off, and then you've got again Negan and Maggie in another.
right.
Really, what does that do on a show that again is already been around for so many years? Why don't you just keep that show running and just maybe do the spin-offs from there?
Yeah, I suppose you could do it that way, but this is going to give you two new shows. Two new shows need to be populated with new characters, so there's going to be new blood. There's
Okay.
uh
But will
there's
they
going
be
to be,
interesting?
well, I mean, gosh, we hope
That was
so.
the backbone, and the reason why people were so entranced and watching week to week early on in its run and
Yeah.
in the middle of its run was because the characters that it built up were so dynamic and were so interesting to watch, and the
Yeah.
character interplay within each other. And I mean, it wasn't about the zombies. It stopped being about the zombies
Yeah,
after the first episode. It was about the
absolutely.
characters and the environment that they were in, and that the biggest threat, in all these zombie movies, the biggest threat is actually the living humans and how they treat
Yes.
each other.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate thing when it comes to these movies. So this really did for a while, really did a good job of showcasing that aspect of these zombie movies or the zombie series, as it were. So I don't know. I'm not interested really in it like I once was in the series. I think I'm one of those viewers, those many millions of viewers that have jumped off the ship, and I don't think it's getting me back on. I'll probably just go ahead and catch the last episode just to say I did of the regular series, just to say okay, I'll tie it as a bow. Obviously, Andrew Lincoln leaving was a major deal for everybody as well, outside of the
Yeah.
gruesome violence of Negan and originally early on. I think that was another key factor. When you have your main star leave a show, it's really hard to retain that audience. So I don't know. I mean, these are all popular characters within the confines of the Walking Dead fans. All four of these characters that are in these two spinoffs. So I think there will be always a segment of the population that follows it. But I still think right now, when it comes down to it, that these are, if you're going to go ahead and just have these spin-offs, why don't you just go ahead and just keep the main series going as long as you want? So I don't
Well,
know.
I mean, everything has to end eventually, and perhaps they're looking at these two
But in a
spin-offs
way,
and
they're
maybe
not ending.
yeah, I don't know, Gerald. I don't know. This is a tough one, if you ask me. I think that sorry, I'm trying to get comfortable in my chair, and I know I'm squirming a lot and making noise. I apologize. But I think that for The Walking Dead, uh, that gratuitous violence there was obviously a little bit too much for people, and the Daryl and Carol show, like I'm even kind of interested in that. I might tune into that one and just to see, what's up and what's going on and see if I've outgrown my horrifying reaction to the zombie sounds. But the other one doesn't really interest me that much. I've never really cared for that character. I even read the comic books for a while and I just don't like them. I
Well,
guess that's
they already jumped the shark on what the comic book was. For a while, they were following it almost page for page, but
yeah.
now they've totally jumped the shark on the actual outcomes for many of
And
the
Game of
characters.
Thrones fans, we know what happened when that happens, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
Still too
Yeah, you get
soon.
the ending that you did
It's
there.
still too soon.
Yes. But I'll tell you what, are you excited out there for another spinoff in the Walking Dead universe? We want to hear your thoughts. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Once again, it is Maggie and Negan setting out to the Isle of the Dead once the regular Walking Dead series ends. So please let us know if you're interested in this. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. WWE 2K22. I know my good friend Jamie Monroy from GameSource. He's actually already playing it. He's got an advanced look at WWE 2K22 as a big wrestling fan that he is. This is a return of a vaunted series that has actually been popular. It's actually been a good selling, but also in recent years has been vehemently trashed because it has been trash for the previous iterations WWE 2K19, 2K18, 2K20. Those previous versions, it seemed to get worse and worse and worse. And not only that, through a whole bunch of microtransactions in there, and it had so too many bugs, glitches. It was just really an unfinished product. I heard even the Nintendo Switch was actually one of the worst games, of all time. Just really some bad versions there. They decided, the company Visual Concepts, to take a year off and to wait to go ahead and put out until it's a little bit more polished and ready fashion for this update. So WWE 2K22 comes out this weekend, and the reviews so far have been pretty solid. I'm not going to say they're great. It's still 76 on Metacritic, which is pretty good. But again, this is a far leap from what it once was. As someone who has loved wrestling games over the course of the past, thinking to my brain now, 35 plus years at least, going way back when. I'm thinking this is a good sign. I'm still hoping for more competition in this environment, in this space. I think there's a lot of more room for it, but at least this is a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I agree. And with and phew, you know what? I'm not even going to finish that sentence. I'm going to take that back, and I'm just going to keep that to myself. I'm just going to keep it there. Yeah, I'm gonna reverse all of that. I never really was much. I never really got into the wrestling video games,
Mhm.
but I have been watching an awful lot of wrestling lately. And you know who I completely forgot about? Who's actually terrifying? That Gold Dust guy or Goldie or remember he used to
Yeah,
come out
no, it's
and
go. Yep, it's Dustin Rhodes. His
Dust.
real name
Yeah,
is
yeah,
Dustin
yeah, yeah,
Runnels.
yeah.
Yes, he played the character Gold Dust, which was
Yes.
kind of a gender bending. He didn't know which way he was trending towards, as far as people were more fixated on that. But he's actually a solid wrestler, and
Hmm.
it was such a gimmick where it was like a Hollywood type format. He came out to a presentation, and during the '90s, it reached at least for a period of time where he became one of the most charismatic and enigmatic individuals in the WWE for a while. So it was
Hmm.
something that I think a lot of people were enjoying for a period of time. So yeah,
There was something
definitely.
in that character that I thought was terrifying. Put that guy in the game, and I'll probably play it.
Yep. Well, I'm assuming if he's not in the original version, as far as the 160 characters that are on there, he'll be added at some point in time in DLC, because he is a WWE owned character as far as the character is concerned, not the wrestler, because the wrestler himself is still wrestling today in AEW. But I will say that again, you'll get to see a lot of the classic wrestlers. You get to see a lot of the modern wrestlers for today in the WWE 2K22 2020 2K2020 2K22. It's just two twos. 2K22. The thing is though, again, 160 wrestlers as far as a roster on the main game, which I think is always a bonus. I really got mad over the course of decades when I play a wrestling video game and it only had like 6 or 8 wrestlers.
Yeah,
That was
that's
kind
boring.
of sad. Now, when the technology couldn't allow for more to 6 to 8, that's understandable. But as the technology got more, you're trying to shortchange. I thought that was very, that just wasn't very forgivable. But right now, 160 characters right out of the gate on WWE 2K 2022, 2K22, WWE 2K22. So I'm interested. I'm looking forward to it. I know Jamie has some thoughts on it. He'll hopefully be able to show us some footage of it at some point in time on one of our outlets. So please take a look at that on social media, maybe Facebook, maybe YouTube. So we'll check it out. But WWE 2K22 is now available this weekend on all the gaming platforms as far as the major ones like Xbox, PlayStation, and PC. So please let us know your thoughts on WWE 2K22. Is it something you're willing to get back into? We know the reviews have been bad for previous versions, but this seems to be a step in the right direction. So please let us know your thoughts on WWE 2K22. Please share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Well, before we head on out, my friend, wanted to go ahead and talk to you about Turning Red. Again, this is a movie that's coming out, Pixar's latest feature that's coming out. It was going to be coming out on the box office theaters until last month. They made the switch to go to Disney Plus. There's been rumors that people at Pixar were upset about that fact and they wanted to be showcased out in the theaters, but I can't really fault Disney too much on it. I mean, they were in desperate need of content. How many weeks now I've been saying that they've been in desperate need of
Yeah.
content up until Moon Knight? They now got at least a little with
Yes.
Turning Red.
Yeah, at least there's a reason to crack open Disney Plus that doesn't involve rewatching The Emperor's New Groove or
Yes.
Hercules or
As I
Fugitive.
noted to Josh on our previous episode, that you love to watch for the 58th time or whatnot. But
Yeah.
I will say that this movie that centers around a 13-year-old who realizes the ability that she, at certain point of times, whether she's agitated or excited or some fashion where she's really, gets the, emotions going, that she turns into a huge fox, a red fox. It still seems like me from what I'm seeing from the trailers, a very cute story, a very loving story, and something I'm really excited about. Again, it showcases the abilities and the animation and the look that Pixar can bring out. I'm really excited to see it, and I hope a lot of other people are as well.
Yeah, I always have time for Pixar movies. Always.
Absolutely, and I'm hoping this will be in line with what the outstanding efforts they've had over the past few years. I know a lot of their efforts recently, like Soul, like Luca, they've gone straight to Disney Plus. I have a feeling Lightyear, which is coming out later this year, later this summer, I think that will probably stay in the theaters because it's still a July release, and I know Chris Evans and his name value. A lot of people
Yeah.
still value that, and as a box office attraction, that people will probably go ahead and check it out at the box office. So I think that, according to Pixar, will probably be the one that I think will probably stay out in the theaters. But I'm excited for Turning Red nonetheless. I really think it is sorely, Disney Plus has been in sore need of any type of content. They are getting the Marvel Netflix shows. They are getting Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. next week. That's great. They're on the horizon. But I'm sure glad Turning Red's coming up now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to not have to rewatch content for a couple of hours.
Absolutely, indeed.
Yeah.
But want to hear your thoughts out there on Turning Red if you're going to check it out. And if you do check it out this weekend, we would love to hear your thoughts on all the changes that are made as far as all the things that are going on with Turning Red. If you are checking out Turning Red this weekend, please let us know. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Well, before we hit my last thing as far as the podcast Dead Eyes is concerned, I want to hear your thoughts I know Josh and I on the Monday show are going to go deep into this DC changes as far as the time changes, the date changes that were made. But I also wanted to get your opinion on Shazam. Well, Warner Brothers wanted to go ahead and make some changes. They moved most of the things back as far as their DC movies are concerned. They did move one up, so that was kind of interesting. But Shazam moved from June of next year to December of this year. That was the one that they moved up. Wonka, which is based off of the Willy Wonka with Timothy Chalamet, that's going from March of next year to December of next year. Aquaman 2, that has gone from December of this year to March of next year. So I know a lot of people are bummed about that. The Flash and Flashpoint, that was going from a November release this year. That's going all the way back to June of next year. So I think there's going to be a lot of work done on that one. Maybe somebody at Warner Brothers isn't happy the way it's turning out. Black Adam, which was getting a lot of press, and The Rock was really pushing that, that's gone from a July release to an October release. So not too much longer, but it's still being put off into a month that it may or may not break that movie as far as being a popular success. Still would have liked to seen it as a summer release. And DC League of Super Pets, which features a whole bunch of all-star voices, including The Rock, that's been moved from May to July. So I want to hear your thoughts on some of these DC changes. I mean, does anyone and one of those changes really stick out to you?
I'm very surprised that the Aquaman movie got pushed back that far.
As am I. As am I.
You
That and
know,
Black Adam.
really,
Black Adam
yeah,
going to October was kind of weird.
that's a surprise. But there could be some kind of extenuating circumstance that we don't know about. Perhaps
Mm,
there's a scene that they need to put in to make some plot point make sense. So,
mhm,
it's possible there's something like that. They could have some kind of issue in post production.
mhm.
Anything like that could be the case. I mean, I can't remember which movie it was. One of the editors was editing the movie and then hit the wrong key and deleted the movie. Have you heard about that? I wish I could remember which movie it was. Luckily,
Let me
though,
know.
yeah, luckily though, somebody had taken a copy of the movie home to work on the project at home, which seems a little close to breaking an NDA agreement to me.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, um, so they were able to get the movie back, and then
Mhm.
they had to redo some of the work. But I'm just wondering if there's some kind of post production issue going on there. It's really hard to say. Perhaps they're looking at the way Marvel is lining things up, and they're trying to find different holes, and this will make more sense to put this here and that kind
That's
of
a good
stuff.
point. Very
Yeah,
good point.
I think that it could be as simple of an explanation as that.
Could be indeed, but there also could be some issues going on within the movies themselves. Like, for
Yep.
instance, Flashpoint is getting a huge bump back. And that is a movie that's supposed to retcon a lot of things and make everything right and make everything nicey nicey in the
Right.
DC timeline going forward. I was
Hmm.
very disappointed to hear that one, especially because there's a lot of hopes riding on Flashpoint to correct a lot of things in this
Yeah.
DC universe, which you and I, and also Josh and I, over the years now, have said a lot of things about as far as being all over the place and having no
Mhm.
direction. And then when they do try to make a direction, people are not watching enough. So I'm curious to see what that extra time that some of these movies are now getting, what that does to go ahead and help polish. I mean, it's always great in the video game genre when a video game does get more time to become polished. I know we don't like it as fans, we don't like it as gamers, or don't like it as moviegoers, but it usually ends up meaning that there's probably going to be a little bit better product that comes out of it. So I'm hoping that that will be the case. But yes, some interesting moves. And Shazam being the only one of these movies being bumped up. What does that say about Shazam being moved up to December of this year?
Well, Shazam had a very different tone to that movie than a lot of the other DC movies traditionally have,
Yes.
right?
It is
So,
not dark at all. It is like
no.
we
Yeah.
don't want anything to do with the darkness of DC.
Right. So, maybe that's a reason why they decided to move that one up. I don't know. Yeah, that's a tough one.
Well, it's going to be now we're a situation where you have Black Adam coming out in October, and then you have coming up right after it, you have Shazam coming out with it. So it's going to be very interesting to see
Yeah.
what that does. I know that they're both within the same family, quote unquote, so to speak,
Yeah.
in regards to that. So they will play off each other. Maybe you want Shazam right there because it'll, if Black Adam does well in October, which again to me is kind of like a tricky month to get a movie over. Still think you should have kept it in the summer, but if that's the case, that's the case. But I still think that if Black Adam does well, if Black Adam does well in October, that could be a big boost for Shazam because Shazam, the original, did not do that great at the box office, but still is a movie that DC and Warner Brothers have some high hopes for.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's a question for you. Is part of, because I'm still learning American culture firsthand, but is your Thanksgiving weekend, that's a big weekend for the movies, correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay,
It's not the biggest. Memorial Day weekend, first weekend of May,
right.
those are big weekends. July 4th weekend is a really good one too.
Yep.
But Thanksgiving weekend, Encanto did pretty good even in the middle of a pandemic,
Yeah.
even though Encanto is done bigger on Disney Plus. But yes, normally Thanksgiving weekend is a pretty good weekend at the box office.
Okay. What I'm getting at, and there is a point, is that October is Canadian Thanksgiving. So
Mm.
maybe Canada's being like a little bit of a test. And I don't know. Maybe that's putting too much importance on Canadian audiences. I don't know. I don't know if they
Maybe.
even I don't even know if they're all that concerned about Canadian audiences, to be honest. As a Canadian, I can say that, hush. But I just wonder if there isn't something to that, maybe.
I'm hushed, all right, that's for sure. Maybe there could be. I'm
Yeah,
not. I'm not
that's a long
entirely
shot.
sure.
That's
It's
a
a
long.
long shot, but
Yeah.
I know that the only times I've seen where a market really influences movies are with the U.S.,
Yeah.
with China, which
Yeah.
is now the largest market in the entire world,
Hmm.
and then sometimes depending on the movie in the UK market, like for instance Bond films. Bond films always release in the UK first. It's not a
Appropriately.
question about it because of the fact of how important Bond is to British culture, but we've
Right.
seen British cultured films debut in UK first and that being a priority. So I get that. This could be a thing where Canadians are now getting some love and that'd be good if that's the case. So
Yeah. About time.
hopefully that, yeah, about
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 time,
time
huh?
indeed.
About
About
time,
time.
huh?
Yes, yes, indeed. But what are your thoughts out there on the DC movie changes? Please share your thoughts, popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. And Josh and I will go into more detail, more thought, and more analysis because I know he's been wanting to talk about what's gone on with the DC movie changes on Monday's show, The Pop Culture Cosmos. But before we head on out, I wanted to talk a little bit more about the podcast that's not named Pop Culture Cosmos or the Lakers Fast Break that I've been listening to lately, although I listen to both those. I recommend those highly. And Vampires and Vitae, I recommend that show because I've been listening to that. Is Dead Eyes. Again, hosted by actor who's not done a lot of notable things. He's done a lot of small roles and he's worked a lot mainly on improv acts and improv shows. But Connor Ratliff, who is starting to get some acclaim for the show, it's going on, I think, about 2.5 years now as far as the shows are. It's in its third season. It's about 30 episodes, just to let everybody know. It's about a show, again, where he, in the year 2000, 2001, he was auditioning for a role in the miniseries The Band of Brothers. Band of Brothers, a very famous HBO series. It's earned a lot of acclaim. You can check it out right now on HBO or HBO Max. But it is something that Tom Hanks and Steven Spielberg produced. And a lot of, again, stars that were not famous at the time have become famous off of it, off that success. It helped catapult a lot of stars. He was actually accepted for a role of Private Zelensky in episode 5 and was all set. He's living in the UK. He was heading to go ahead and take on this role. And Tom Hanks, according to he's been able to ascertain over the course of 30 episodes, at some point in time, according to what the word that got back to him, said that he had dead eyes and he would not be taking that role, and they hired some actor to take his place. Now, the gist of most of the episodes since, it's like a serialized tale. If you're familiar with the very famous podcast that really brought the podcast medium out there called Serial, it does it in that type of true crime mystery type format, as far as him trying to uncover little pieces, trying to get people that are connected to this decision that was made to try and uncover the facts in regards to exactly why Tom Hanks, or if Tom Hanks, actually used the word dead eyes. So we've been uncovering things like, as far as audition tapes or some of the other things that were relating to it, talking to some of the actors that were involved with the Bond brothers, some of the producers, talking to famous stars and producers like Seth Rogen, John Hamm, Elijah Wood, and many more comedians that he's worked with all across his time in improv. Trying to break down not only his struggles as an actor, but also their struggles and some of their rejections. And you get to hear their stories as well, while trying to piece together his entire story on how this happened in the Band of Brothers. So what happens is it's all leading up to a situation where would he ever get the chance to speak to Tom Hanks face to face? And the thing is that all throughout this, everybody who was even relating to Tom Hanks or had knowledge of Tom Hanks says great things about Tom Hanks.
Yeah, you don't
Nicest guy
hear
in the
many
world.
people say anything terrible about
Yeah,
Tom Hanks.
not nicest guy in the world, tremendous actor, best actor in the world, yada yada, and the whole 9 yards. There's no like big poo-pooing on Tom Hanks at all at any time of the episode, but it's an interesting journey he takes. This is over the course of 2.5 years, and again, I've been trying to binge it over the past few days, and it's leading up to a episode that dropped as on the same day that we're recording this, where he finally gets to speak to Tom Hanks to find out all the reasons why. And I'm not going to go into the actual results of this conversation. Did he say this, or did he say that? Did he or did he not say that this actor Connor Ratliff had dead eyes? But to me, it's a bigger look at the entertainment industry as a whole, the ins and outs, the
Yeah,
struggles that you have, the rejections that you've got to deal with, because everybody seemingly that comes on the show has a rejection story or a firing of some type, and even notable producers, directors. Judd Apatow, Paul Feig, I mean Seth Rogen, they all have their stories, and that makes me and that to me makes such a great part of this series. So that's the podcast I've been checking out, and I hope you get a chance to check it out too. It's been getting a lot of notoriety because of the fact that he's gotten Tom Hanks on the last episode. I don't know if it's the last episode of the series. I know it's the last episode of the season 3. I don't honestly know where it could go from here. But again, if you're willing to take a 30 episode run, or in this case 31, this might be one well worth taking.
nice. It sounds really interesting. And what a great, behind the scenes look at, the life of a struggling actor trying to, or producer or
Because
director.
he is. Yeah,
Yeah,
because after that, he didn't do much more in the early 2000s, so he left to just go ahead and work in a bookstore for 13 years
yeah,
before he got the itch to start acting again. And then talks about his climb back into a struggling actor, once again, trying to get roles, commercials, television. He's been in the
yeah.
Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, he's been Orange in the New Black, small roles here and there. But again, it deals with another side. It deals with another side of the entertainment industry I really like people to go ahead and check out. It sounds good indeed. I know. But I'll tell you what, if you got a chance, or if you've already checked out the series Dead Eyes, available on podcast outlets everywhere, want to go ahead and give a big shout out to Connor Ratliff for creating a very nice show. Again, it's done in the serialized format, so it leads a tent of mystery. It has a tent, it brings surprises every now and then. So if you're interested, please check it out. Dead Eyes, wherever you get your podcasts. But Melinda, it has been a great episode. I cannot thank you enough for joining me as always. Do you or your dog have any thoughts on the way out?
Yes, actually. It was one that I meant to send you before we started. You've heard about what's going on with GTA 5, right?
What about the next gen drop that's coming up?
Yeah, that you have to pay for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Or does
Yeah.
this surprise you from 2K?
Well, I mean, it just seemed
It's a
uncouth.
rhetorical question because I know the answer is yes. Everybody's
Yeah,
upset in
of
arms about
course.
it.
Yeah, it seems uncouth, but for a game that came out, was it like 2012, 2013, something like that?
2013, yes.
Yeah, So they've just been continually creating more and more and updating and giving you new little bits and new little things.
GTA Online has become a huge entity in and of itself.
Absolutely. So maybe it's about time they started charging for some of that.
But a lot of people are upset about it, and a
Of
lot of
course
people
they
are,
are.
are upset about that. It's such a big price difference. I know some next gen upgrades we have seen over the past couple months have come out like an extra $10 you have to pay, or if you're buying the new version straight up, you don't have a previous version, it is $70, and a lot of people are getting upset about that. But again, this is 2K. They are the microtransaction kings of the gaming universe and have
Hmm.
just unapologetically just said that they love this, that they love getting all these extra dollars and cents. It helps build what they have today. So I'm not surprised in the least what they're doing with GTA 5. And people shouldn't expect a GTA 6 anytime soon because of it.
Yeah, definitely not. If they're that focused on, getting new content out for GTA 5, then 6 is I don't even think it's on the horizon.
I'm probably say give it another 2 years. Give it another 2 years.
Okay. I'll take you up on that. In 2 years time, we'll meet right here and we'll have a talk.
2024. I'm thinking 2024. I'm thinking
2024.
2024.
All right.
Yeah, I'm
Sounds like a
thinking
good year.
maybe. At least they'll announce it by then. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
I'm covering my bases there. But I'll tell you what, it's been great having you on the show once again. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And please check us out each and every day for the latest news and trends and also tabletop RPG action. There's no better place to go than the pop culture cosmos. So for Melinda Barkhouse Ross, this is Gerald Glassford. This is another beautiful day in paradise right here in the PCC universe, multiverse. We thank you for listening. And listen, and here's hoping you have yourself a great